Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap podcast from SNXweave, where we give quick weekly recaps of news and important updates from the previous week from the Spartan Council and core contributors, as well as discuss what the Grants Council and ambassadors are up to, so let's get started. First, it's election time again. Nominations for the next Epic's councils are open and will close on September 17th, after which voting will commence. As a reminder, the nomination and voting process now both take place at governance.synthetics.io, as the v3GM election module is in full swing. Check out the post linked in our blog post to see the full election schedule and read more about the process and how to nominate yourself. And of course, with every election season comes a lot of SNXweave content. In the coming weeks, we'll be publishing the attendance and participation report and the Synthetics quarterly report, as well as hosting the Spartan Council election panel. If you plan to run for Spartan Council and would like to speak to your candidacy with the other nominees, be sure to DM Proof of Cake in Discord to be on the panel. It will be live in the community governance stage next Wednesday, September 21st at 8 p.m. UTC. So go ahead and RSVP to the Discord event and we'll see everyone there. Now onto our regular news updates. SIP 271 is the biggest item right now, with the Ethereum merge event now upon us. This SIP proposed suspending all Synthetics contracts on both Ethereum and Optimism, starting about 3 hours before the expected merge block, which is happening tonight. Activities will be resumed after ensuring that Chainlink and the rest of the protocol is in a stable state. Besides this, the other V2X priorities remain generally the same as last week, with the team focused on improving atomic swaps, delivering debt migration, and getting V3 and Perps V2 into audit. And speaking of V3, the docs page is currently more updated on V3 than the SIPs are, so if you're looking to read more, be sure to check there. Noah, however, is currently working on updating the V3 SIPs, and at the moment, SIP 301 is in audit, and 302 is ready for an initial audit review, pending its vote. Last week, there was also some discussion amongst the council regarding the C ratio. There's been some talk about lowering it back to 350% given the recent price action. There's support on Spartan Council in favor of this if there were to be a strict criteria written for when it gets raised back to 400% again. Caleb reminded everyone that Gauntlet is recommending a C ratio change in the opposite direction, to 450%, and Kane countered this saying Gauntlet is just a recommendation body. He added that ultimately the Spartan Council has to take the input that they receive and decide based on a number of factors beyond what Gauntlet considers in their models. After a temperature check, it seems that 5 of the council members have indicated their support for the strict criteria compromise written into the SCCP. Lastly, there were a couple of SIP presentations last week, so let's briefly review them. The first was SIP 276 to turn off the money printer. Presented and proposed by Kane himself, this SIP ends inflation with the total supply of SNX tokens capped at 300 million. This SIP also elevates the token supply to meta-governance status, meaning any future changes to the token supply will require a unanimous vote by the Spartan Council. The idea here is to taper inflation over the next 10 weeks towards the final supply target. At that point, protocol activity would be sustained by fees. The timeline for the taper is up for discussion, and Kane is looking for feedback from the council on 10 weeks versus a more extended taper timeline. The next presentation was SIP 274 for the introduction of an inactivity threshold in Spartan Council SIP and SCCP vote participation. Terra presented this SIP, which proposes an inactivity threshold for the number of missed votes that a Spartan Council member has. Once a certain number of votes are missed over a certain time period, a dismissal process is triggered for that counselor. The SIP proposes setting the threshold at 5 sequentially missed votes over a period of 7 days. After further discussion, consensus was reached on a compromise at 10 days rather than 7. And following this period, if a council member has not been voting as required, the remaining council would have to report to the PDAO for them to be dismissed. Dismissal would then trigger an emergency vote to replace them. Ali pushed back, saying he's not sure there should be hard rules for something like this, because it seems like something is going to collide with a lot of edge cases. He thinks these kinds of actions should have some kind of soft consensus among council members. Terra said the overall objective is to assure the community that their elected council members are participating as expected. In Grants Council updates, DHedge has officially submitted a funding request to support their integration. The Grants Council has also expressed interest in funding a research and development phase for DHedge to produce a document that outlines the integration process. This documentation could then be used to help other protocols integrate in the future. The team has recently revisited the translations project, as Mike and Matt have built out a process for getting documents translated. They've been working with a couple of translators and have issued retroactive rewards for the work. Mike thinks it's probably time to open the pool to a wider group of candidates. The plan would be to reward community members retroactively for work that has been done, and eventually offer part-time appointments within the marketing team. The council is also in the process of reviewing the grant request for an academic conference in Italy to assess if they may consider sponsoring any portion of the event. The conference is scheduled for early 2023, and one of the translators working on document translation is in Italy, so they might consider a collaboration to see if the translator can help spin up some marketing material for the event. And that's it for today's updates. Be sure to check out our weekly recap blog post, share this podcast link, and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear more about from SNXweave. Thanks for listening.